Hello and welcome to With Thunder's Applause, a podcast where two friends get together to talk about the ideas and events that will shape our uncertain future. I am your host, Steve, along with my co host, Zach.
Hello.
Hello, we are here. Remember, safety first, shenanigans thereafter.
Also, something about thunderous applause and liberty. I forget now.
Yeah.
The other logo is better.
All right. Well, welcome. It is our Thursday night shooting the Poodoo stream. It just happens to be 420 and just happens to be the day after the season finale of Mandalorian season 3. And since we are a politics channel that dabbles in Star Wars, I think it's only appropriate to discuss.
Oh, completely agree. And maybe get away from some of the more tedious things in life and focus more on Star Wars and smoking weed, or however you prefer to get your
kicks.
Yeah.
Clearly,
It's always on Route 66, I've heard.
The older we get, the more that like alcohol with the occasional, like primarily alcohol, but with the occasional cannabis becomes like just the state of being.
We have actually flip-flopped it due to my health.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So now we're doing a lot more of the cannabis and a lot less of the alcohol. Or that's the theory anyway. I mean, I have like 2 of these right here, so I don't think I'm doing too well. My doctor is probably mad at me right now.
Oh, shit. Did you have to go to the doctor? Is that when you got your vape pen? You never told me that, bro.
What?
We're supposed to be talking about the current events and ideas that will shape our uncertain future. And we weren't talking about the event that your doctor told you that you should probably start vaping fucking
Instead
of fucking drinking like a goddamn fish.
I don't think it was I don't think those were her words exactly. I think it was more along the lines of like, she's looking at my health report and she's like, "Oh, how much do you drink?" And I'm like, "Oh, this much." And she's like, "Oh, maybe cut that in half." And then she looks down and she's like, slashes out half and writes 0. She's like, do that. I'm like, damn, doc, can't do that.
I always, because we live in America, so our healthcare is primarily provisioned through walk-in clinics. I don't know if you have a doctor or not.
I am in the same socialized medicine as you are, sir.
Excellent. Yeah. Yes. So your health is administered through a walk-in clinic. You don't have to fucking be like, "Oh, ask your doctor." Well, I got no fucking doctor.
Yeah. I'll ask whoever happens to be here this week.
Yeah, but I always try to be honest with them.
And
they're always like, for me, because I'm a fucking tobacco smoker, they're like always, I come in and I'm like, "Oh, this is really bothering me." Like when I almost died, I think I mentioned last episode, like I had this crazy health thing with my GI tract, and like all the fucking doctor kept saying is like, lose weight, quit smoking, come back.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to provision any health care if I have.
What about the right now where I'm literally dying? What do we do? What do we do now? Like, how can we stave that off while I work on those?
Yes, I understand that's what's necessary for my long-term health and happiness.
Yep.
I'm not so focused on my happiness and being able to survive like 30 years from now. I'm not.
I am. 30 years sounds nice. 72, good age to die at.
No, and that should have been a fucking news item. See, like we should be doing news items tonight, but it's 4:20, and I just want to spend the next fucking 6.5 hours talking about Mandalorian. Because it was all right. We'll talk about that first, and then we're gonna I don't know. It's 4:20, so I like felt obligated to pull together some kind of Gone story, and I found a little Forbes mini doc. Forbes does some really good shit, dude. But anyway, it's mostly, well, the clips we're pulling from it kind of tell a story of how like legalized cannabis kind of was done incorrectly. and that it kind of, you know, I see a parallel with alcohol, I guess is what I'm saying, right? Like we had
Right.
prohibition of alcohol and it was terrible, but it's the opposite effect in terms of like producers and markets. So I want to talk about that um, today as well. And part of talking about alcohol is this interview I heard with the CEO of Budweiser. I think it's the CEO or COO or whatever. One of the executives of Anheuser-Busch discussing why they chose a marketing strategy that exploded in their face. I don't know if you heard much about that.
Nope, nothing.
What?
Yeah, dude,
Well, fucking type
I'm
that
not in
shit
the
in.
same
Your
cesspool that you're in.
type that shit in to Ask Jeeves or DuckDuckGo, and then try and give the audience a summary of what's happening with Anheuser-Busch.
I'm gonna search Budweiser blow up 2023. This
And while
motherfucker knows how to
you're
do
doing
things.
that, wait, if you can multitask, tell me what the hell your fucking background means today. It's going to be a new segment. Explain your fucking background, dude. We just need like a graphics card. Like,
so I started making a thumbnail for this, even though this is a shooting the Poodoo and it's the same thumbnail it's always been, but I just got started. And so some of the stuff we discussed earlier and ended up putting off till later was about domestic abuse, and so I pulled up
right.
a cartoonish like stick figure graphic of of such abuse, and I also pulled up news because we were going to talk about the news, and this is a lorem ipsum style thing. I hope this doesn't mean stuff that I pulled up, and it is just let me see, a man bearing a slight resemblance to Peter Capaldi, the doctor, is being drowned in D20s, which have all rolled 20s. And it says RPG, boy, are we surprised. Surprisingly surprised. Yeah. I have no idea
Speaking
what
of gaming,
means, but it was there.
This new Star Wars game came out this week, I think, or last.
Oh, which one?
Is the sequel to Fallen Order?
Oh, I'm not going to get that for another 2 years.
Jedi Survivor, I want to say.
I mean, sounds right. I think I heard something about it.
I never played either. I think at one point I was like, fuck, bro, I should probably like...
Dude, I offered to play. Okay. I have some accounts that I can lend you. Just
did I give you my...
Don't tell certain companies.
I still never gave you my HBO login, did I?
Oh, I don't need it. I'm good.
Oh, okay.
We already finished Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
And we watched that one show.
What'd you
Game
think?
Of Thrones.
You watched Game of Thrones before.
Yeah, I know. Oh man. What did I think of it?
Of Last of Us?
Well, having never played the video games, I thought it was a very compelling story. I like the fact
that
I've
never played
actually all that many zombies at all. Yet they didn't overly. It seems like every time they started to emphasize, the human connection and so on and so forth, like The Walking Dead did, they had a scene full of badass, zombie creatures like coming after them. So you weren't just led to believe like, oh well, yeah, if you relax for a second, of course the zombies will get you. But it was more like, even if you're on your guard, doing the best you can, and everyone is armed, zombies can show up and fuck your shit up. Like that episode, spoilers, where the
truck sinks into the hole.
Pause. Truck sinks into the hole, and that big, Gigantor thing comes out.
Yeah, that was fucking. I've never played it, and I could imagine like the game. I'm almost certain, and I hope that someone sees this and has played the game, and can put in the comments, you guys are fucking retarded. Just play the game. But like, I suspect that there's a lot more zombie killing in the actual game.
Oh, yeah.
It's like action driven, right? Like,
yeah.
I
I
think it's
mean,
a
it
role
seems like
playing
it's a bit
game,
of the
but
story. Yeah, it seems like it's a fair amount of story with like hide from things, sneak from point to point. It looks like a third person shooter RPG
mhm.
is the best description I can give it.
I saw a little bit of gameplay for the second one, which I
Mhm.
assume uses the same engine.
It looks similar,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and it looked exactly like that, a
Okay.
third person, kind of like uh Raccoon City, Resident Evil,
Oh, okay.
where
I
it's like first person, like you're following the character, but it's not
yeah.
from the first person perspective.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
that's
there's a
third
lot of
person.
cut dialogue, decision trees that
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
select choices that like affect the outcome. That's what that feels like to me.
Oh, very much. I think a game we both played. Very much like Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic.
I actually never played it.
Oh, I really thought you had.
Bro,
My
the only
goodness.
Star Wars game I ever really
So I've got
played.
this account that I can lend you.
I really do. Maybe sometime in my future, I will get my shit together enough to play video games. But right now, I have
Make a list.
so much on my fucking plate, dude.
So if you haven't already gone and made an Epic account, you need to make an Epic account and probably a Steam account too, and start getting all the free games they offer because they're offering like new games every week, like multiple
Okay.
times a week. Not sponsored, but like I swear it is the coolest thing ever. I've gotten so many fucking, you know, games that are like, oh, that's a bizarre game, and then followed up by like, oh, that's a triple A game from a year or two ago. And
Hmm.
that's how you get your free
Yeah. I
games.
mean, I'm pretty high, but I'm pretty sure I just said I don't have time for games.
No, you got
What
time for games.
what are you saying? Download them now so I can maybe play them in the
Well,
future, but now get them
yeah,
for
yeah.
free?
Oh, I download
Okay.
so fucking many that I'll probably never play, and every once in a while there's gold. Like I think I got the Lara Croft ones, the newer ones. Newer, I say newer. It's probably like 2015.
Yeah, I
But
played a handful of mobile games, and
yeah,
that's like maybe 3 or 4, and other than
yeah,
that,
you don't allow yourself to sit down at the computer and play video games. Like,
no, I don't even like
yeah,
to sit at the computer and do the work that needs to get done. Like I start teaching, co-teaching a permaculture intro to permaculture class
right.
fucking Tuesday, and all my slideshows are done, and I've gone to all the meetings and we've coordinated how it's going to run and shit. But like, I'm still over time on 2 slideshows by like, I mean, one of them I'm over by a lot, but the other one I'm like barely over, and then one I'm a little under. So I just need to mostly practice and tighten up the second two.
Yeah,
And uh the first one I gotta like fucking reshuffle slides, and that's the one I'm presenting first on Tuesday.
nice. Yeah, I've done.
It's
I've
the one
done.
that needs the most work, and it's the one that's due soonest. So
so,
at
so
any
you fucked
rate,
up.
if I was gonna sit at my computer for, and I need to, right? Like
Yeah, you need to
they say
relax, man.
thinkers and writers, like
Yeah.
generally, like that I shared with you a interview that um Nate Hagens did with Kim Stanley Robinson, the sci-fi author. I
Yes.
thought it was a
Yes.
fascinating fucking interview, and I'll ask you to clarify your question you sent in text because I didn't understand it in just a
Yeah, for sure.
second.
Yeah.
But like one of the things like that stood out to me is something that like I read Stephen King's autobiography. It's called On Writing. It's a really fucking good book. It's a good autobiography. Like
Step one, cocaine, I assume.
um I don't recall him talking about cocaine, but he did talk about some
Mm,
traumatic experiences he had with kids that kind of like informed his ideas and like really kind of set him on the path of writing horror, including having like really bad ear infections. And at the time, the medical intervention was to fucking suck fluid out by jamming a needle through his fucking eardrum.
right. Right.
And so there's like all sorts of kind of, and it was like a weird,
Man, I
you know, he
wish they
had to
would
wear weird
sometimes.
contraptions and shit. So like he kind of got turned into horror and sci-fi like that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the things he says is just like in what most people who are writers say, including academic writers, is like you just have to fucking sit down and do like you're like, this is what I do 7 days
Right.
a week from 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
at my
That one guy
house.
said he
I'm at
did
my
3
computer.
hours a day of writing. That Kim
Yeah.
Stanley Robinson
Yeah.
guy.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. And so he spends 3 hours writing, but then he said he spends at least 2 hours reading nonfiction
Yeah,
and
yeah.
1 hour reading fiction.
As he falls asleep, yeah.
Yeah, and he does the fiction at the end of the day, and he does the academic reading earlier in the day. And
Which is
writes
when it
more
should happen. Like, I remember falling asleep so many times after reading science, mostly science fiction books, but like a couple of like more horror or
I've
books in middle school and high school, and just like having fantastic dreams and being like, "This is what it's all about."
Yeah, I've kind of waffled. I mostly through most of my life, most of my reading has been nonfiction. Some of it compelled by school, and some of it, some of it compelled by interest.
Yeah,
Right. Um, but I have gone through phases where like I consume a lot of fiction. When I was younger, I read a lot of fiction, like junior high and high school. Like that's all I
yeah,
pretty much
yeah.
read. And then I went through a phase of graphic novels where I consumed every graphic novel I can get my hands on and without purchasing. So this is through libraries, right? Like I
Yeah,
read all the graphic novels that were at the base library, and like had gone and read a few from the public library downtown.
got to go to the bookstore, man. So
Yeah, I could be
I'll buy a
buying books,
cookie.
but
No, no, I mean buy a cookie and then read the book. I
hmm.
visited a Barnes and Noble in Florida and like basically bought like 2 drinks and a cookie and read 3 novels. Just sat there from morning till evening and then went back to base.
That's
Ain't
cool.
got nothing else to do in Florida, guys.
Yeah, but anyway, reading and games and storytelling, it's all really awesome. So maybe do you want to start just with the fucking Mandalorian since that's kind of where we're already at?
Hell yeah, man. So I fucking enjoyed the hell out of it.
All right, yeah.
I hated the fact that they tried to bring back IG-11 again. You haven't seen the last 2 episodes, including the season finale.
So we generally have because there's so many really good like breakdown after shows, etc. so forth.
Yeah, we're not one of them.
We really there's no room for fucking unorganized people like ourselves. And actually some of them like New Rock Stars and Screen Rant both have like they're actually creative companies. They do all sorts of movies and pop culture stuff. And Star Wars is just some of it. So they have like editors and writers and like tech people that run the cameras and set everything up. Um, and they have a team and they meet and do it. It's a company, right?
Right.
And so there's other people that do that shit better. So we're just going to focus on the season as a whole or the second half because the way we've been approaching it, because we're not needed to do a week by week thing.
Yeah, we did the
Just like
first
half
half and
the
now.
show.
Yeah.
Second
Yeah.
half of the show.
Yeah, I mean, let's do the second half.
Okay. Sorry.
That's mostly where
So
I'm.
continue. I cut you off.
Okay, so anyway, IG-12, as they've called it. Like, is it great? By no means. Is it funny? Hell yeah. Like, who doesn't want Grogu in there? No, no, no. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. The last 2 episodes, which I think from what I gathered, the fan reception is similar to what we're kind of already saying now, which is like they were pretty damn good.
Yeah.
They were very entertaining.
Yeah.
Um,
I still want Grogu to just like go fucking crazy on someone, but it appears as though Luke has had too much of a positive influence on him for that to
well,
ever
I'm
happen.
glad he
Or
did
stroke someone. Or
because
like
it
lightning.
opens up for him to go back because he's
Yeah.
already proven that like the problem with attachments. First of all, for Luke to say that, people get mad at Last Jedi Luke
Mm-hmm.
for being disillusioned, but here, Book of Boba Fett, fucking Book of Boba Fett Luke is like, oh yeah, attachments are bad. When like his whole fucking arc in the original trilogy was to like kind of leave behind some of the more dogmatic bullshit of the Jedi
Maybe
to be
those are
like,
his
no, it's
attachments.
okay. You're my father and I'm attached to you. And that attachment's not wrong. That attachment like
Yeah.
gives me power, right? Like,
Maybe he detached himself from the dogma, therefore proved himself right.
mm-hmm.
I mean,
But I did notice because there was like the end scene where he was restraining himself from eating the frog
yeah, numbing
and
on
how
frog.
I mean, he almost exclusively used the Force defensively in that whole
Right.
scene.
Right. Oh, it was almost always to knock someone away from someone else without knocking them over a
Or
ledge.
pulling their weapon away
Yeah,
right
yeah,
before they grab it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It
pushing or
was
pulling
fucking
away.
hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
The fucking
Yoinks.
it was compelling action while at the same time also being like really kind of entertaining in a way. Like not
Yeah.
comical, like childlike, but
I mean, it is to an extent. It's very slap. Like anytime someone uses the force to be like, "Boop, you're just knocked down." Oh, ba 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 da ba. Yeah, like that is kind of funny. Actually, it's kind of childish. It's not serious. Like
right.
there's no real threat to it if they don't follow it up with a lightsaber to the chest. And so, like that is kind of childish. And I will say, I absolutely love the whole grabbing weapons and all that, and knocking people over. I swore I was like, oh, he's gonna knock Gideon like off the ledge. Like they kind of like led up to it because they were like, oh, look, he can push and he can pull and he can make all this stuff going, and he's gonna get mad like he did at the big animal, and he's gonna knock him off the ledge. But nope, it ended up he just got burned to death.
Yeah, so that was the thing is you we were kind of talking about, whoa, where'd it go?
You're back.
Okay, great. That was weird.
It
Um,
was very quick. Let me see how your connection is. You're solid.
okay, great. I
Just
just
something
like
weird.
moved my mouse and like it went and
Wonderful.
everything went black but you and my bottom right on
Oh,
my
you actually blinked out on the camera.
I know I blinked out on my
Yeah,
side too.
yeah, weird. Anyway,
Yeah. Okay, anyway, so Grogu did show anger at that scene, and you're right, he didn't push Gideon off, but that's the only time he showed a burst of emotion at all. Because I mean, he was even like jumping and giggling, and I thought that was kind of weird.
oh, when he was trying to avoid all those
Yeah,
three,
because he's like fighting for
whatever
his
they
life. He
are,
definitely probably
royal
should not have
guards.
been giggling.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think maybe at the doll, like, they can only program it so many ways. So, like, if you like pretend you're tickling it, like
You can mute it.
it only giggles. So
Tickle
that's what
me
they're doing.
Grogu, and
It's
you're like,
jumping
stop
around.
tickling Grogu, damn it. We're trying to have a serious scene here.
Tickle me Grogu. Unlike there's a news item for you. Did you hear about the fucking what's his name? I almost said the Pope, which is
There better
also
not be fucking news around Tickle Me Elmo. I'm gonna be pissed.
I was about to say the Pope, and it's close, but no cigar. The Dalai Lama.
Oh yeah, with the tongue and the sucky and the
Yeah.
That's
So I was gonna say,
dude, that's old news.
tickle me Grogu. Show me on the Grogu where he touched you. Trigger warning. Yikes. Okay. It's just a joke, people. Fuck off. Let's see. So the second half of the season, I don't even remember which episodes are there. I think the season overall told a really good story. Um, the way I've summarized it in just about probably every Star Wars comment thread on the internet is because that's what I spend my time when I'm like, I need to sit down and write and be disciplined. It's like I just sit in my smoking chair, like fucking
Shit post on Star Wars forums.
not shit posting so much. Like I'm pretty like I'm not a shit talker, right?
Shit talking and shit posting are two very different things.
But I do enjoy reading what people have to say because like a lot of people are fucking super creative, dude. Like, and as
Yeah.
much as like it's kind of a fucking heavy burden to like exist at our particular moment in time, space time, like, and how very how little hope I have for like human beings to come together to avert like massive catastrophes.
Yeah.
Like there is that kind of glimmer of hope, a new hope, perhaps not really that new of a hope.
An old hope.
A what?
An old hope.
An old hope.
A reminiscent hope.
That people are super fucking creative, and most everybody is like pretty chill. A lot of the, toxicity
Yeah.
is it still exists as we've discussed before, but like
Well, I know online
I
there's
see
all
a lot
kinds of
more productive conversations happening than I did like a year and a half ago. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say I know there's a lot of places online for people to like write down their stories, write down their character ideas, and I do wonder because I never looked if there are any where it's like, hey, let's match, people that are really passionate about making characters with people that are really passionate about, like, creating the landscape upon which the characters live, and then people that are really passionate about managing those two people. Because, like,
Yeah.
my kid is just like, I want to make up 1,000 characters and tell you all about them. It's like, cool. I'm going to sit here, drink beer, and you tell me about these characters you've created in your head and all their interconnections. And then, you really need to find someone who can write a damn story. Because,
Yeah.
like, she can't write a narrative. And, like, I get that. A narrative's hard. Like, in
It's
making up all the character traits, like, that was she and Lucas would, like, write, if you got them together in the same room, they'd make up 1,000 characters in like 3 days.
yeah, writing the characters and the backstories is the fun part.
Yeah. They're doing the actual, like, world building and all that other stuff. Super.
It's really
But
hard.
yeah, there needs to be, like, a website or an app, like, basically to connect, GMs that are, like, heavy on the world building with those that just love to make characters for fun.
Yeah.
GM meet. Oh,
So what
maybe
is
steal that trademark pending.
yeah, we could. So I kind of got distracted, but my point was the comment that I left in most comment threads is that I felt the season would have benefited. I love Andor. It's going to be like nothing is going to pass it in the foreseeable future. For me, in what I want out of Star Wars, but like, so I'm like this, like the overarching, like what they were trying to do with Moff Gideon and his kind of like narcissistic self-aggrandizing kind of like he was trying to take over the galaxy and he was lying to the other people that he was supposed
Right.
to be working with about it, right? Like
Yeah.
And so taking that element along with the uniting of the clans of Mandalore, because like I'll point out a few things that I really appreciated about that component and do that while also still centering the relationship between Din and Grogu. And I think making that in an arc structure like Andor used, 3 episodes per arc. Or maybe a standalone episode and a 2-episode arc, which worked too in Andor. But have some kind of consistent storytelling block that like you have this overarching plan, but you can move through in a consistent way so you don't get, oh, at the end of one episode, oh, there's pirates. And then at the end of the next episode, they fucking defeat the pirates. Like there's no kind of build up and resolution. There's no kind of like, it doesn't pace it. And they've never even sprinkled in bits of dialogue or symbols or other things for the fucking fanatics to like find in the background of a scene that like indicates something, right? And they just kind of fucking squandered it. And then they take the big bad of the season, or really this trilogy, right? The first 3 seasons, they really ended that at the end of season 3, like you said, right? Like it came to a point of resolution, the story of the first 3 seasons of this show. But like they didn't really develop these connections, and it's just like all laid out in exposition by the main bad guy in the last 2 fucking episodes.
Right.
And
And
like,
that was actually a complaint
yeah,
that fans had that I did see was it had kind of gotten very episodic. Things transferred, of course. This isn't, The Simpsons or Family Guy where nothing matters, but like for the most part, they're pretty separated. And I had heard that what's his name, Mandalorian guy, Pedro Pascal,
yeah,
was basically saying he wanted to leave the show because he just wasn't satisfied with it. He didn't state anything clearly. Of course, they never do. He's not going to be like the story writing shit, John Favreau, or whatever. He's just going to state I'm leaving. And so the end, I think, was a great setup for that. I've read also that people are talking about how it's going to be, Bo-Katan and Din Grogu in the future. It's like, but how would that happen other than Din Djarin dying? And so we'd have to have like an off-screen death for him probably. And I hope they pull it. If they do that, they better fucking do it right, like they did with Wakanda Forever, where they had the like super cool death scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they did do, like I said, so the Mandalorian arc, I felt
Yeah.
like a lot of it felt rushed. So the 3 arcs and make it 12 episodes and make the episodes more than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not a Saturday morning cartoon. It's a show that deserves another 5 to 10 minutes every
Yeah.
week. And
Yeah,
so
do
that's
28 minutes to
really,
30 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, it's really hard. Like, I mean, Andor had a few short episodes, but generally Andor's came in above 40, and I don't think only one episode this entire season came above 40 in Mandalorian season 3. Like, we need more than 35 minutes for the fucking finale, especially when like the like a third of the fucking episode was all like act 3 stuff. Right? Like, the 3-act structure. Act
Yeah.
1, call to adventure, introduce the characters, blah blah blah. Act 2, the bulk of the story. Act 3, what happens after the story. Act
Yeah.
3
Wow.
is when, if you recall, Randall in Clerks 2 talking about the Act 3 in the Lord of the Rings, where all the hobbits are all jumping on the bed, and then Sam and fucking Frodo have like a fucking shit fetish thing, remember? No.
I haven't read the books.
Oh no, it's Clerks 2, bro. Remember when Randall makes the other coworker fucking vomit because he's like talking about how the hobbits are gay or whatever?
Yes.
Sorry.
It was a super gay look.
Totally appropriate talking about Star Wars though, to bring up Kevin Smith and fucking
Lord of the
Clerks
Rings.
and shit.
There's only one return, and it ain't of the king.
Yeah. And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
So yeah, so the final episode was only 42 minutes long. The one right before it was 46. That was the one with the big fight that it, was going to be super fan pleasing and all that. Fan service, really. It's just like, y'all want to see a bunch of Mandalorians with their jetpacks, like fighting enemies, don't you? Well, let's give them these faceless stormtrooper-esque guys to fight by.
That are slightly tougher.
Yeah. Well, and for me, it was all about that. Like, wow, that's very similar to how they did the droids, so that when they killed them, they were faceless beings. They weren't like, you didn't have to think about the death and all that stuff. And I'm like, I really want people to avoid that in the future. Like,
yeah,
maybe more shows need to show the faces of the people that are dying.
But I think the comic book violence is a little different.
It is. I guess I kind of wish that we could traumatize our children earlier with real death or more realistic death. So, because the thing is, like, maybe they would be afraid to, like, get us involved in wars and stuff, and they would protest a little harder, and we could, like, rally behind them and support them, and just be like, yeah, man, fucking war's stupid. Maybe we shouldn't be
that makes sense to me.
But this is Star Wars, not Star Peace.
Indeed.
So we got to shoot some Mandalorians,
right? Yeah, so for the Mandalorian arc, the stuff I really liked, like the Bo-Katan, like she's such fucking not a good actor. She's not a good actor.
But she was in that one other show that was in space. How could she not be
and
good?
She voice acted for the character Bo-Katan in the Clone Wars and Rebels.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was the voice actor for her, and she was in before that in Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, and so like, which I haven't seen.
Oh,
I've never seen Firefly either. Fuck off.
No, we're done until we talk about this right now. Go watch.
We're not talking about fucking.
Go watch fucking Firefly. Go watch the goddamn Serenity.
Okay.
No. Rachel was saying that she saw a post the other day that was like, I really wish that Star Wars would just do a more Western focused thing, because they got a glimpse of that in a Mandalorian / like Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And someone replied, someone from the Firefly crew, I believe it was the engineer or the mechanic, she replied, yeah, we did that. They canceled us after one season. It's like, That's very true. Like
I
everything is
heard
being
that
done
it's
here.
actually being floated to come back for a streaming service. Like, you
I
know how
I've
streaming
seen
services
that.
become production companies?
Yeah, I have seen
Yeah.
that as an animated one. And
Mm.
I would absolutely num
Yeah,
num
I
num.
wanted to
I'll
say
take that.
it was
Well, it's been more than
it
20
was gonna
years.
be Netflix was gonna pick it up or Amazon as, like, an original production thing.
Yeah, I mean they both do animated is the thing, and it's been 20 years plus I think since the movie was. So like they're all pretty damn old, and so it had to be like we're doing the last run on this on the Serenity. We're gonna go deep into the space and do all these things.
It'd be like watching the American Congress, right?
Yeah, we're
Like,
gonna get
fucking
shit done
Feinstein's a
after we
corpse,
take a
Biden's a
nap.
corpse, Pelosi's a corpse. They're all fucking walking. They're the Walking Dead.
Hmm.
They really are, and
Maybe
they're just
that's what it was
fucking
all
everything
about.
up on their way out.
This entire time, like you could have just replaced The Walking Dead with Congress and the House. Been okay.
Yeah. So real quickly, because I think we should probably move
45
on.
minutes. We
Yeah.
should. Yeah.
No, what I really liked is like kind of like building that arc of coming back. I like that. Um, I found it. I actually thought the armor was a spy after the 7th episode.
Hey, why not?
Um,
Right?
and that's because like it seemed really abrupt that like last season when he's like, "Have you heard of Bo-Katan?" She's like, "Oh, I know Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan a bitch." And then
Yeah.
like, and she's like, "Oh, Bo-Katan, have you taken off your helmet since you went swimming in the
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
pool with the big fish?"
Maybe take over home right now.
And she's
Yeah.
like, "Well, then you're part of our clan too, and like you're redeemed." Like, which is like you literally like blamed her for the destruction of your home
But it
world.
doesn't matter though if you have a set of deeply held beliefs and you can find something to forgive someone within those deeply held beliefs. You're
You
okay.
provide a mechanism, right? Bathing in the
Yeah, yeah,
living waters. That's your
yeah,
mechanism for redemption. It's
yeah,
literally a baptism.
yeah. So it's
And
like, oh, you straight up murdered a whole bunch of people. Oh, but you bathed in the living waters. All right.
yeah, you're good. And so like I thought that was a little kind of like abrupt, but I understand too, because like again, they didn't break the season into manageable chunks and
Yeah,
then work through the same broad story was great. It was just mishandled, in my opinion. And I think that like that was a little abrupt, her becoming part of the covert, and
yeah,
then like there was some other stuff, and then it was like, oh, take your helmet off. Now you're gonna fucking go unite the Mandalores.
yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm thinking, like, what the fuck? And it
I was
turns
like,
out that
oh, it's a trap. She's gonna be like, look, she took her
yeah,
helmet off. Fucking kill her.
yeah.
She's an
I, I,
apostate.
I watched a lot of mashups. There was one that mashed that up with uh Spaceballs.
Mm,
When Rick Moranis like goes up to what's his name? God, I forget the actors. Bill Pullum.
yeah.
Who played the kind of Lone Star or whatever, the Luke Skywalker Han
And
Solo
also,
type
I believe
character.
the president in
Independence Day.
yeah,
Yeah,
Independence Day.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, and he says, "Oh no, we're done. Let's shake on it." And he pulls his fucking Schwartz ring off. Oh, you fell for the oldest trick in the book. I saw someone mash that up. It's like, remove your helmet. Do you not trust my station? He pulls the helmet out. Oh, he
Oh,
fell for
that's
the oldest
great.
trick in the
Oh,
book.
you should have given me that. We could have put it up here.
At any rate,
Oh,
I thought it was abrupt, but like I really
yeah.
liked it because like, and that's why it needed more room to breathe. Like you have the episode where she like reunites with everybody that abandoned her, which you never built
Yeah.
the stakes for them abandoning her in the first place. She's just sitting in her castle by herself, sad because like
She
everybody
didn't
left
have
her when she didn't have the dark saber.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's like the moment you have the dark saber, like you're forgiven, and then it does leave it up in the future, like what happens to her when she no longer has the dark saber because it was broken. But I mean, nobody has the dark saber. Do we have to have some sort of new way of governing the Mandalorians? Some sort of direct democracy, perhaps?
And that was the kind of the point I was getting at is that like so they destroy the dark saber. They showed that underground garden, which I thought the dialogue around there was actually like compared to the first two seasons, there was significantly more voice parts,
Yeah,
right? I remember hearing Tony Gilroy about Andor kind of bragging. He's like, yeah, they're like, wow, you've really written this kind of complex story. And he's like, Yeah, we have like over 160 speaking roles in this show. Like we wrote like a really fucking compelling story, and I noticed that in this season of Mandalorian there was like a lot more speaking roles, like a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, a lot of them were pretty basic, just like, yeah, for
Sure,
Mandalorian.
but like
Yeah.
there were a
Or whatever.
lot more moving parts. You had
Yeah.
the survivors that you could have just been like, we're the survivors, and like and after the seventh episode, I was like, oh, I have zero investment. Maybe they're the spies. How the fuck did they survive? And then it was weird that they took a really short episode about the final epic battle and then stuffed this into it. And I think it worked, right? Like we're retreating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we had to retreat. Oh, now our reinforcements are here. We go back, right?
Mhm.
That made sense. It didn't. There was didn't feel like there was any danger or kind of like, oh my god, like we don't want to retreat but we have to. And then it was so short a period of time in the show that they were had retreated that it didn't really feel like they retreated, you know what I mean? um
Yes. Yeah.
but I think the garden and then the way the armor was like, hey, the mythosaur is a sign, like this could be a new era, and then the destruction of the dark saber. So like basically like this period of civil war that is like all we know through expanded universe stuff, right? Like
Hmm.
in Knights of the Old Republic, where the was the planet glassed by that point?
No. It had been attacked, but it wasn't
So
destroyed
it was
like
a
that.
civil war much closer to our the common era, I guess you could
Yeah, there
call
was another planet that was destroyed, but it was like Terrace 2 or something like that.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, so they had all this conflict, all this competition, all this infighting, and they seemed to put it aside. The dark saber, which was a symbol of power
That
and
probably helped.
therefore like a point of contention, right, had been destroyed. There was not only evidence that the mythosaur returned, but also that like native plants had just been dormant for a really long time. I thought that
Which
was really
happens.
clever.
Which happens. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Like a lot of our
because
plants can survive decades
yeah,
in
and
seed.
I've given the example before. Derek Jensen talks about Chernobyl and how like the worst nuclear accident ever shows how much more destructive industrial society is, because even though there's like all this really intense or was all this really intense radiation, like nature has thrived in a way that it couldn't thrive when humans were exploiting that space. um yeah, I know there's genetic anomalies and all sorts of horrific shit,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
generally speaking nature took back, like, collapsing, vining up buildings and trees growing in the middle of roads and all that shit, right? Like nature took it back, and there's all sorts of wildlife there that like wasn't there when people were there.
Hmm.
um and so I thought that was kind of interesting too, right? It took the destruction and the abandonment of the planet for like that kind of see mythical energy or that kind of life force of the planet to return. And I thought that was really interesting. But I thought they did a decent job of showing how, like, in terms of like people who are into lore, right, and trace a lore all the way back. Oh, I know this from
Right,
KOTOR.
right.
I know, this from all the shows and the movies. Um, and then bringing all of that, what in Star Wars universe is potentially like hundreds, right? Hundreds of years of time that the planet
Oh,
surface
thousands.
was, yeah, or thousands of years that the planet surface was not really inhabitable except in these like domed cities,
In the
etc.
current lore, it is not even, I don't even think it's dozens. It was basically, from the sounds of it, the Empire was taking advantage of the Mandalorians as mercenaries all throughout the original trilogy. And then near the end of the original trilogy, they decided they didn't need them anymore. And so they tried to wipe them out. And so, like, it almost sounds like what they've done is
Well,
they've taken the story from Knights of the Old Republic, which was like 4,000 years before the first series, and they've moved it up, which I'm fine with because, like, Knights of the Old Republic really didn't even need to exist. It was just kind of fun to, like, go back in
well,
time.
No, because in Rebels, like they uncover the fact that like Sabine worked on a weapon that was used to exterminate. So it was during the Empire's. That's when you're saying the Empire decided they were done with them and got rid of them.
Yeah.
Okay, but there had been conflict, and they were living in domed cities during the Clone Wars. So they had already had their own civil wars that destroyed the surface of the planet.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm saying, is that there was
Okay.
all this conflict and constant war fighting, and like now that's over. They resolved that. And so for like them as like a significant element of Star Wars, right? Like in terms of how they built their culture and the different main like protagonists and antagonists that have been part of Star Wars other Star Wars stories like the Clone Wars and Rebels. They took all that long story about those people and kind of brought it to like, yeah, it's like a renaissance, right? Like we got the mythosaur, there's fucking plants growing here, like the dark saber, which was like a really like a point of contention, a point of conflict in their culture. Like
I
it
kind of
meant
really,
a lot, but at the same time it drove division.
yeah,
Right.
Right. And to wind it back a little bit, I really loved the guys that were already on the planet, and they were like, "Oh no, we cultivated this." Like, such a good, little bit of fun. You're just like, "Oh yeah, we stopped being warriors because we had to survive."
Swords to plowshares, bro. This whole episode, I made this joke also. The other was a comment about how I wish it was structured and provided more space for meat. And also like took the Gideon stuff and introduced him earlier. In the grand scheme of things, Grogu and Yoda should have been reunited in the middle of this season, not in the Book of Boba Fett.
Grogu and Yoda?
Oh, I'm sorry. Grogu and Din. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah, Grogu and Din
Yeah.
should not have been unified in
Outside of the series,
They
basically.
should have been. It should have been halfway through, so that they could have spent a few episodes of Din having these other adventures with the Mandalorians, right?
Yeah.
And he already knows he's a foundling, right? Because they in that first few half of the season, this season, they could have had him turn in the Beskar spear or whatever and make the chainmail.
Yeah.
Right. And he could have gone, right? You could have had that episode. He could have gone to give it to him, and it was a conflict. And then a few episodes later, after he's doing other stuff with Bo Katan and with the covert, then Grogu comes back, right? And it would mean a lot.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They fucked that up. But even if they didn't stretch it, okay. So I don't know. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't fucking terrible, but like, yeah, they didn't.
It was entertaining. I don't know why they felt the need to hang on to IG-11/IG-12 for so long. I get it.
Yeah.
He's supposed to grow. Din Djarin is supposed to grow as a character and come to appreciate droids, and he relied on R5 when they were on Mandalore, and ultimately, he kind of got a better outlook on droids. But some of it did seem like forced. Like, hey, I got you a new, law. I'm a lawkeeper. And it's like, okay.
It's kind of almost irrelevant. I agree.
No, but it's
Be
not,
my
though.
marshal is basically
I don't
he was
know.
like, be
For
my
me,
marshal, and he's like, no. How about this?
well, for me, it just fails to recognize the sentience in a droid like that. Like, you can call it IG-11, but what made IG-11 IG-11 was IG-11's memories. And so when his memory core was corrupted, he ceased to be the droid that you knew. He's something else. You can call him whatever you want, but he's not the same droid. He doesn't have all the things that led him to bypass his normal programming in order to self-destruct rather than to kill his target. Like, there was a whole lot of mental shenanigans going on for a droid program for one specific thing to bypass it and do something completely different.
Oh, you mean when Din talks him out of blowing himself up?
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Like, that is significant, and I don't think that was given enough recognition. Like, getting a purely logical creature to give up on its programmed in logic is like high level persuasive abilities. Almost like
Yeah.
talking a Jedi into realizing that they were actually, the cause of the Civil War rather than the solution to, and that they should join your party.
Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I really think that it would have benefited from building more on it. I really liked that arc. And so my point is another thing I made in the comment, or another kind of common thing that I took out of this was the joke that Disney, like, because people are still talking about fucking Gina Carano and getting fired or whatever.
Was that the gal who was in MMA or whatever?
Yeah, played the character Cara Dune,
Okay,
and they
yeah,
were going to make an entire series for the character called Rangers of the New Republic.
yeah, and then it turns out she was ever so slightly racist.
Well, she was just saying things that were insensitive to fucking non-binary or trans people.
Yeah,
And then the internet does what the fucking internet does, and that's like make a gigantic deal out of something that's like relatively minor. Like, like, why don't you have your pronouns in your fucking Twitter profile?
I
And
mean, at
she's
the
like,
same
okay,
time,
beep, boop,
like,
beep. Those are my
I mean,
pronouns.
at the same
Right? And
time,
then people got mad. Go ahead.
right? I was gonna say, at the same time, that's talking with your dollars. Like,
100%.
yeah,
And the reality is that the internet is just going to fucking, if you're on social media and you're a public figure and you say something
yeah,
that you're just kind of dismissive, or like, expect people to blow up your fucking DMs and your fucking feed and like talk shit to you. But
yeah.
what you can't do is touch the third rail of American politics, which is comparing people criticizing you on social media to be like, I know what it was like to be a Jew during the Holocaust. Right? Like, and Disney was so fucking apologetic, and this is the joke that I've been rolling with or working on, right? I've been workshopping. The joke is that Disney felt so fucking bad about Gina Carano's comments on Twitter that they made an entire season of The Mandalorian that was fucking the Old Testament. Because no, it's literally like when they're like the apostate and what the fuck, man? Weird.
You're back.
The
Calm down, man.
apostate, the covert, or there was another one. Anyway, some of the titles, but like the spies, when everybody's like, oh, who are the spies? Like some people pointed out, like the spies were the group of escaped Israelites from when they escaped Egypt or whatever in the Old Testament that went into Israel to as military scouts essentially, and they were in the text they're called spies, right? The 12 spies or whatever, right? And so that would fit with the spies, right? And then the return, right? So it's about being in exile and returning to your glory by being cunning warriors. And it was, they basically just kind of modified, as I understand it, modified the fucking story of fucking Jews escaping Egypt and going back to Israel, or returning to Israel, even though they weren't even from fucking Israel. They were from the mountains, I think, along the Red Sea, and they were herds people. And then that's when they founded Israel. I don't know the fucking history. Don't give me like a, what do you call it when you say insensitive shit and then you get flagged? Don't report me for not understanding a book I've barely paid attention to in Sunday school.
You wouldn't have.
Okay, let us go ahead and move on to Forbes, because I would like to make a cocktail. And what a perfect time to make a cocktail is when there is a 1 minute and 30-second video playing.
Perfect. And then I'll make a cocktail on the next minute and 30
and everybody else. Okay, perfect. We'll just take turns.
Ready?
1, 2, 3, go.
Humboldt's cannabis farmers, some of whom have spent decades running from helicopters before California legalized marijuana in 2016, are now operating in a broken market. Nearly 5 years after California launched recreational marijuana sales, the price per pound has collapsed by 52%. Instead of getting rich producing a cash crop, 95% of licensed California cannabis growers operated at a loss last year. I'm Will Yakowitz, staff writer for Forbes, and I traveled around the country to speak with entrepreneurs and investors to find out exactly how America bungled the biggest no-brainer in the history of capitalism. Legalizing weed, the world's most popular illicit drug.
So I got a friend. He grew lots of marijuana back before it was legal. And that was back when an ounce of weed was perhaps like $250. And I've heard it's actually a lot cheaper now, which is unsurprising. We talked at the time about how the economy of scale would apply to any sort of marijuana growing industry. You'd be able to get fertilizers cheaper, land cheaper, a lot of the other things that you need in order to grow cheaper. You could do indoor grows during the winter and make money when other people would not be able to because they didn't have the resources necessary. And lo and behold, here we are. Marijuana costs more or less, but it is kicking out a lot of the smaller people who would have otherwise been involved with it. And I was kind of noticing as we went to try and buy some in my local area that the two main companies that are selling are actually massive, corporations that have taken over all of California. We have like Embark and Artistry, and my understanding is they have no fewer than a lot of shops all throughout California. Just talking about how basically marijuana has become a new hotspot for parking your money, and it's hard to be the little guy anymore.
Yeah, definitely a lot of capital flowed into it and a lot of consolidation. The next clip that we're going to play, which I guess we have to wait for a bit, we'll talk a little bit about some of that dynamic. But yeah, I mean, you can go to any newspaper, and I regularly do, especially if you follow like any of like the North Coast kind of indie publications or anything like that. Like, dude, towns, including the town I live in, not less so because we're a city and we have like quite a bit more economic diversity, but there's a lot of small communities around here whose only source of income was people growing ganj, either for medical dispensaries or black market. And so a lot of families who like found an income, whether you agree with it or not, right? Like you can be like, well, they're doing something illegal or whatever. It was a lifeline for their families. Their kids were able to have shoes, right? We're talking primarily pretty poor people. No one got rich growing fucking ganj. In fact, they'll say that in the next clip. But the reality is that like legalization just hurts so many fucking people. I don't really know about local market consolidation like Zach was talking about because like it wasn't I didn't really know my suppliers, but it was pretty easy to get pot like all through college. And then I was in the military and didn't smoke. And then I was an air traffic controller afterwards, so I didn't smoke. And then when I started smoking again, I've just been growing my own. So I don't know. It's kind of like my chickens, right? We got 49 meat bags. We actually lost. I didn't mention that in the top. We lost a fucking hen today. Bro, this fucking red-tailed hawk. And it always happens, right? It's inevitable, especially when they're smaller. Like the hawks are kind of intimidated by the full-grown hens because they're so big. They'll still kill them. Yeah. But they're a lot harder to kill too because like they're survivors. They can run fast. They're a lot bigger.
Well, you never know. You have a rooster.
Yeah, we don't have a rooster and won't have one because they make too much noise and make the neighbors mad. And we got to keep the neighbors happy because we do all sorts of shit that we're not permitted to do here, like have pigs. I'd rather just have happy neighbors and make sure.
Don't know what you're talking about. Everything sounds fine where I'm from.
But my point was that what was my point? I lost it. Oh, I was talking about fucking pigs, chickens, neighbors happy. Oh no, roosters. Oh yeah, we had a fucking
you got poult, there.
A poult that got taken by a red-tailed hawk. And motherfucker, like it was still alive when we ran out. They were like, "What? It's all the fucking crows and the blue jays, the scrub jays, like they're both Corvidae. They're in the same like bird family. They make a lot of noise when predators are present. So we heard like, we're not fucking squawking. Oh shit, there's a hawk. We go running out there, and sure as shit, a hawk flies up out of the field, and there's just like, this is a bird still fucking twitching. And you go, and after she fucking went through her death throes, and like, and I kind of want to just let her finish dying or whatever before I start like inspecting her. Dude, fucking
going to be like fucking Sherlock Holmes in there. Like, this is
trying to
clearly
eat her.
done.
I was surprised it didn't take the head off because that's what it usually does.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, it fucking tackled it and then cracked its fucking head open.
Ooh.
Like, I think it was going for the brain before we spooked it off because
Like,
the skull was split open.
Yeah.
And it ate the fucking eyeball off of it, like one of its eyeballs.
They are delicious.
Or damaged the eyeball so it looked like it got eaten. But yeah,
I mean, there are easy holes to get to, and when you're a predator trying to eat, you go for the easy shit. Tongue, eyeballs.
Eat its eyeball.
Yep.
It sucked, especially since Thursday is trash day, so it's going to be in the 80s, I think, for the rest of the week. So now we got a dead bird in the fucking trash can for a week because trash picked up before it happened.
Yeah.
At any rate, yeah. So we were talking about cannabis, and I said I didn't really understand like market pressure or market consolidation because I grow my own ever since I started smoking again as an adult. And I was saying it's kind of like chickens because we got 41 died in the brooder. We bought 50. So there's 49 meat bags out there getting fat. And it's one of the things like we really haven't felt inflation that much. Like tonight's dinner was pork chops still from a pig we killed like over a fucking year ago.
Nice.
Like, so like pork, chicken, whatever. We're about to get some bronze breasted turkeys.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few that haven't sold and they're like 2 weeks old. So they're mostly feathered. So I might not even have to brood them, which would be fucking awesome because the worst part of fucking poultry, we're like talking about fucking weed and now I'm talking about fucking keeping poultry.
You do you.
Me do me.
You do you.
Yeah, anyway, keeping poultry is fucking cool, but like the brooding is the worst fucking part because like you're constantly checking food and water, making sure that like they're warm enough, and like you're constantly adding litter or changing bedding,
right?
Because they're confined to a smaller area and they just shit. And there's other ways to do it that we could set a brooder out in the pen, and the meat bags actually are out in their grow out pen, but we have a light out there because like the nights dip down below 40 again, and we're like, they're mostly feathered, but they're still pretty young.
Yeah.
So we just put the light out just in case, put it fairly high, made sure it was secured so it wouldn't like drop off of something and start a fire. But otherwise just kind of use some empty plastic totes and flakes of straw to build out just like a kind of U-shaped cubby with the light above it that they can all go into and get out of the wind and all that other stuff. It's like covered from moisture, but like the wind blows through it. Because it's only covered over the top, like it's open on both ends. Like it's wire fence, so predators, but it's otherwise open to the wind. And for ventilation and just expense, we didn't want to get more coverings to cover it completely. At any rate, so keeping poultry, yeah, we don't know about inflation, so I don't know much about weed inflation, but this guy is going to talk a little bit about how it happened. So we have families not being able to supply income. And what I was saying when you step away is I know like a lot of small towns around here and a lot of them in Northern California broadly, like no one was getting rich, but like kids could have a new pair of shoes to go to school in.
Yep,
like,
they were getting by and a little more.
Yeah, the people who fucking grew weed as income.
Yeah.
Because, whatever your moral judgments are about drugs or whatever, if you think it is a problem, you're fucking stupid. But really, like, that was the only source of income for some
If you
folks.
can grow it, why is it illegal? Fuck you. is what we boil down to on this channel, I think.
I don't know, man. Opium has proven you can grow that, and it's proven to be really deeply problematic. Speaking of which, I planned on growing some opium poppies this year.
All right, let's not talk about where you live
Just a
anymore.
handful. Well, no, it's not illegal.
Yeah.
Papaver sinniferum is the species, and they're not illegal. You can buy the fucking seeds.
And
They're pretty common.
Put that in the show notes. How would I spell that?
Oh, I don't know. Look it up. But my point is not saying I'm growing fucking opium poppies. The point is like, I'm not gonna like try and extract sap or do anything illegal. But I would like to know how to grow them so when the rule of law breaks down,
you can grow them.
I am a competent horticulturalist when it comes to one of the most important fucking medicines we can fucking have when there's no modern medicine. You know what I mean?
And you've absolutely got a point there. You have every reason on the world to practice that green thumb for anything that's illicit but desirable.
Not just desirable in terms of like, oh, because I can use it as a bargaining chip. I just mean like painkillers.
That's what I'm saying, though. Is like that makes it desirable.
Like, we're fucking game changers in medicine, man.
Oh yeah, like if we lose antibiotics, people I think would like if all of a sudden a bunch of diseases were to become antibiotic resistant,
we'd be fucked.
Like people would not just fucked, but that is the point at which I think people would lose confidence. Like if you think people have already lost confidence over like vaccines and stuff, just wait till antibiotics stop working. Like that's gonna freak people the fuck out. Like, wait, I used to be able to just like, go through my life, get stabbed a couple of times and get a shot, every 10 years and I'd be okay. And it's like, yeah, well, we don't have that anymore.
Bro, you get an ear infection because of fucking allergies and you don't have antibiotics. Like, unless you're like, a good homeopath or like other herbal remedies or other ways to get rid of it.
Yep.
Plan on losing your hearing if you're able to fight a fucking fever for like a week.
Right.
You'll be like bedridden and fever ridden trying to fight the fucking infection. You'll probably still wind up losing your hearing.
Yeah, like, I definitely like have had really bad luck with water getting my ears and getting infections. And I told people like, don't fucking push me in the pool. You might think that's a funny thing because you're some sort of weird person who thinks that pushing people into things is fun. But you stop that. You stop that right now. Don't you push me in that pool because I will get an ear infection.
No.
I will get an ear infection.
No. Like
hit the button. No.
Yeah. Some people already incorporated it into their soundboards. We don't have a soundboard, but when we do,
you want a soundboard?
We'll have it there.
I can probably get a soundboard. I just hooked us up on Instagram. I haven't like started posting yet, but I'm told I have to in order to get any sort of attention. So there we go.
Yeah, it really takes a coordinated thing. You just need someone dedicated to doing that shit. I'm not gonna.
You got to get your ass back on TikTok, brah.
I know.
Makeup. No, I'm not talking about as your other one. I'm talking about as With Thunderous Applause Podcast or WTAP, which sounds like a radio station. Bruh, we could have a radio station.
WTAP. The Mothership Connection. Like the fucking Parliament Funkadelic.
That was such a good show. I lost a little bit of my hearing there and more of it elsewhere.
I lost a lot of my hearing, mostly due to my career. But yeah, at concerts too, I'm sure. Yeah. Let's play this weird fucking white
Hell
dude.
Yeah, man. Also, for anyone who's young and thinks you're badass and whatnot, just fucking wear the little, spongy things that go in your ear when you go to a concert. It makes all the difference.
Oh, dude, like if I forget them, I think when we went to one of those kind of
Aftershock,
yeah, music festival things, like metal music festivals. First thing I did when we got there is go up to the rock medics and be like, yo, I forgot my fucking foamies. And they're like, here you go, bro.
Yep.
It's like, sweet.
Guys, they don't cost nothing. Yeah.
My eyes and my ears were my money makers for a long fucking time.
Oh, yeah, man. My fucking, like, having hearing is wonderful. And, like, I still got it, except for the spectrum. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, fucking just put those in when you go to a concert to save your hearing, y'all. Anyway.
And put them in when you do anything.
Yeah. Chainsaw. Smacking two pieces of metal together.
Firearms.
I was yeah, that's a good one I didn't think about. I was breaking down some pallets to get them sweet 2x4s, and just hammer on hammer, clang, clang. Like halfway through, I was like, I'm an idiot. Because it don't make any noise after
Yeah,
that.
the only time I do loud things without proper hearing protection is if it's going to be like very, very short duration, which like I understand is like, yeah, you still should have it. You can do damage at short duration,
Yeah.
but it's a lot less likely. Like if I'm like, oh, I
Yeah,
need
most
to make
things.
like one fucking cut with this, with this skill, this battery powered skill saw, I need to make one cut.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to go fucking go to, I mean, because I'm not organized. I have to go digging for stuff. But
You're not
generally,
gonna have
I'll
your
just be like,
you're not gonna have your best friend put on
and it's
gloves.
over. So, at any rate, let's talk to this guy. I think we're almost at time anyway.
We're getting there.
From 1996 until 2018, we had a lightly regulated system in California that supplied medical cannabis patients with very high quality, very affordable cannabis and allowed the people who are growing that cannabis to have a decent upper middle class lifestyle. It worked well for everybody. Nobody created intergenerational wealth, but everybody prospered, everybody was taken care of. That all changed in 2018. And the day before the new regulations went into effect, my dispensary, Harborside, was supplied by 500 small independent growers. The next day, only 10 of those growers were able to get licenses from the state. And at the same time, taxes went up by 50%.
Our mutual friend saw this coming and backed out of that industry as quick as he could and tried to find other things to invest money in.
Indeed.
Because for a lot of people, this was the moment to just go legit. If you had any sort of savings at all.
Yeah, and it was really hard. So what I find fascinating, and we're going to show, but this was the end of this clip, right?
Yeah,
so we move on to the other
the Budweiser
Jimmy
one.
Dore one. So you want to come up 90? We are
Budweiser and Jimmy Dore. Which one do you want?
Sure. That one. Yeah, that's the clip.
Okay.
But what I was going to say is there's this interesting dynamic with weed, with cannabis, with cancha, right? The herb, whatever you want to call it. It went from like having like a lot of market participants, like a ton of market participants. That one dispensary in Oakland, California, which was one of the original 6 dispensaries after we passed Prop 215, right, to legalize medical cannabis, or to basically like make an exception so that cannabis could be prescribed medically, where before it could not. Found out while I was in high school, we were actually buying from one of the other 6 licensed dispensaries, one that was closer to our area, through a backdoor channel, of course, because they're growing a lot of weed, and then somehow high school students are smoking the fucking right, and you wonder why the fucking, I mean, it was no excuse, right? We shouldn't have drug cops and shit. Anyway, he went from 500 suppliers to 10 suppliers because the barriers to entry were so fucking high.
Yep.
And like, so what we went from is having a lot of like a really robust competitive market with a lot of market players to legalization and monopolization, which is like a big fucking theme about what we do here. We're always talking about monopolies, and I wonder why, because monopolies are antithetical to fucking freedom.
But it turns out it is the end result of every capitalist or any other sort of money-centric regime that we talk about.
That's true.
We have found very few ways to take care of everyone without impinging upon certain freedoms.
Right. So it reminded me of basically the reverse trend of prohibition. See here, this was under medical, right? Before full legalization. But there were that many, when medical fucking came up, maybe there were fewer growers, right? Illicit growers, like black market growers, but there was still a fuck ton of black market growers.
Yeah.
Like weed is relatively easy to fucking grow. and there's a lot of land, and there are counties like, dude, people think California is populated. I shouldn't say people think it's populated, because it is fucking populated. There are counties in the state of California, like Trinity County, that the whole population, it's about the size, it's smaller than LA County, but it's about the size of like the average size of a county in California by area. And it's got like fucking 25,000 people, dude. Right? Like, there's like 20,000 people in a massive amount of space. There's no fucking way to police all of that.
Yeah.
Right? So it was really easy to grow fucking weed, especially since, like, you know, helicopter flights are expensive. Drones didn't exist at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Probably be a lot fucking cheaper now with drones.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But at any rate, yeah, so there's a lot of people fucking growing, and it had this trend of going from like being a diverse market to being super highly concentrated and monopolized, whereas beer went the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this controversy with this like Anheuser-Busch bringing in this like trans influencer on social media to like become a spokesperson, right? And it's created, of course, because like Budweiser and America and shit, and it just, of course, falls into the fucking culture war bullshit where they're like, oh, why does Budweiser want to use a fucking trans person? They're trying to push their woke agenda when all Budweiser is doing, and you can hear what she says, so I won't say it. But it's just a fucking marketing gimmick. They don't give a shit about trans people.
Right.
They want to make sure the kids keep drinking.
I haven't watched it, and the thing is, like, nobody I know drinks fucking Budweiser. Like, I don't. Who do I know? You tell me. Who.
Oh, that wasn't a one. That was a.
Oh, okay.
Save that point.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Gotcha. You've watched this already. Here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm preparing the show. Yeah, I watched it.
It just goes to show you the only thing she could ever sell was something that was already sold before she was ever born, which is Budweiser.
I mean, how do you screw that up?
She screwed it up.
She should teach a class at that Hillary thing at Columbia.
Watch this.
I think number one, you know, I'm a businesswoman. I had a really clear job to do when I took over Bud Light. And it was, this brand is in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time. And if we do not attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there will be no future for.
Is she talking about kids that do illustrations behind her?
Maybe. I don't know.
Attracting more young.
We got to get some young people doing alcohol. Got to get some more people. Got to create some more alcoholics.
How is it in decline if it's the number one?
It's the number one. So here we go.
Number one of the decline.
So I had this super clear mandate. It's like we need to evolve and elevate this incredibly iconic brand. And what I brought to that was a belief in, okay, what does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone. It means having a campaign that's truly inclusive and feels lighter and brighter and different and appeals to women and to men. And representation is at sort of the heart.
And alienates your core customer base for the last 50 years. So you'll lose $6 billion in
of evolution. You've got to see people who reflect you in the work. And we had this hangover. I mean, Bud Light had been kind of a brand of bratty, kind of out of touch humor. And it was really important that we had.
So she just insulted the people who buy her product. And she wants to totally we want new people now. We want young people who are into trans and LGBTQIA plus as their identity.
Sounds like she might have fucked up.
Well, that's the thing. They did lose a lot of money because fucking rednecks and shit or whatever. That's what the right wingers do, right? Is they just fucking latch on to every goddamn. They're an outrage machine, right? And so is the what qualifies in the public eye as, you know, whatever, the opposition, right? I'm not going to call them the left, right? But
I'm just surprised that like Jimmy Dore is talking about this.
Yeah, because he does shit to him. A lot of his fucking followers are fucking right wingers.
Oh,
and
really?
he is also like an anti-woker person.
that actually kind of makes a sense because I got tired of him and unsubscribed from him a long time ago.
Yeah, I unsubscribed from him a long time ago too, and it was from talking about what the fuck was his name in Michigan. I keep wanting to say Dylan Roof, but that was the fucking kid that shot up that black church. I forget. Anyway, there was the kid who was like not really old enough to own the weapon or possess the weapon he had, but he like came in from a different city to like protect businesses, and then
Gotcha.
people got mad at him, and somebody tried to hit him with a fucking skateboard, so he shot like 3 people or something like that. Killed 2 of them or some shit. Anyway, he got let off. Jimmy Dore had a really fucking shitty take on that because like he was, they just fucking call everybody a right winger, and it's like, no, he definitely was no fucking 17, 18-year-old kid throws on a bunch of fucking tactical gear and goes fucking posts up with a weapon where there's a lot of uppity black people. If they're not like, adjacent, they might dabble in the fucking racist shit a little bit,
Yeah. I do believe that at some point, Jimmy Dore said, if you give me the money, I'll say what you want.
Yeah, he's basically talking about the mainstream media.
Yeah, like he probably thought it was jokingly, but it definitely sounds like an offer. Like, hey, I'll fucking turn tail and change my message for money. So I'm like, oh, did he finally get that money? Like, the more I watch him now, I'm just like, the more it sounds like he was given a lot of money.
No, I think he was genuinely he's principled against authoritarianism, and I think that, I think the COVID and stuff, like he got his vaccine, even though he kind of was like skeptical about it, and then he had fucking severe like reactions to it. And so he talked a lot about that and was really mad about it, and saw how propagandized the country is on issues of war and other things like that, that he spoke out about those things. And so a lot of right wingers gravitated towards him because like everybody that you might not call a right winger, right? Like was like, oh, you're fucking the problem if you don't go get your jab, right?
Yeah.
And so he grew that audience and kind of has maintained that space because like he's right, it's fucking absurd, and he's still quite critical of the right, but a lot of the shit he says comes from this like anti-woke thing. And I can see why he gets mad because he's a fucking pariah. Like he's a comedian in LA, and like all of his friend circles, like he'll tell stories. He's like, dude, like I fucking hung out with this guy like once or twice a month, like we go golfing or whatever for fucking years, and then I talk shit about fucking Joe Biden, right, when he's running against Trump, and like people drop me like a bad habit because I'm responsible for Trump because I said Hillary Clinton's a piece of shit and Bernie got robbed, right? Like I'm responsible for like immigrants getting abused at the border because fucking Trump got elected, and then he can't have his social circle fucking died on him, so of course he's gonna get fucking radical, right? I mean, that's kind of how I gather. I don't know the fucking guy, but like he's fair. He has a fairly public. He's a fairly public persona. So like that's kind of what I gather from what I've gleaned from various interviews and stuff. But I think this is interesting because like it's just, I mean, to me, and it's a great one to end on because we can say when liberty dies, it dies with thunder's applause. That is not the ending. I'm just saying it's leading. Don't clap. Stop clapping. Don't, at the end, you may clap like you clapped when Grogu got into IG-12 for the first time and was marching around the room saying yes, 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 yes. Because we clap. Brooke and I clap.
I kind of just did this.
Oh no, we were
eyes closed. So the glass off. Eyes closed.
I was literally clapping and laughing out loud. I was like, oh my god, this is fucking awesome.
It was fun.
And so it's endearing and it's fucking hilarious. Anyway, we're talking about Budweiser. Anyway, she's like, oh, we have this, this brand that's like really suffering. And they point out it's still the number one seller, right? Again, it's You brought up an article. Oh no, you're just reading it. It's irrelevant that like it's the number one selling brands. Like they don't care if they're number one. They're looking at what is their revenue, right?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but
So
like,
they're like,
do we
oh, but
still
they're the
have
number
competition?
one. Well, what's that?
Do we still have competition? Yeah. Then we're not done yet. Like that
There's
is how
that
businesses
for
go.
sure. But also I could see them being like, hey, we need to do something because like our fucking sales have like dropped year after year for like a couple decades.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like it's stopping. And the reality is, and this is kind of the why I even thought to bring this in, because I watched this in like, and it wasn't really relevant to what we were doing until I looked at that Forbes clip about the fucking weed farms, and I was like, holy shit, it's the exact opposite. Like after prohibition, there was only a couple that could come out of it. And I guess in some ways, maybe perhaps that is similar, right? That only the best funded organizations, companies can come forward out of a situation when you completely alter a legal regime, right? And so Budweiser had basically, is that their stock?
Yeah. Over the last 10 years.
Yeah. So even with their stock falling, oh, they haven't shown 2023. It's on
Yeah,
the
5 years. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. So my point being is that like Budweiser has declining sales because we have microbrews and because the de facto monopoly or cartel, part of the cartel status, right? When there was just a handful of brewers after the prohibition, that shit lasted for fucking decades until, at least according to the mythology, Sierra Nevada.
You can only believe them as much as you believe anyone else. And so,
And I believe it because they are one of the bigger names in microbrew.
yeah.
Like, and they really kind of were at a forefront. They have a bunch of awards, and like when you think of the scale they have,
Well, and
like, they got in early. I mean, and they literally have videos of and equipment of it that he used.
well,
right?
and they
Like, so
cracked.
you kind of can tell. Sorry, go ahead.
They cracked the IPA market.
Code.
No market when there was none.
Well, we had nothing but the kind of beer that Budweiser is.
Well, and like literally,
All the
there was a beer
competitors
that
were the same.
advertised on like the bitter beer face, and that was from like either leaving it outside or like having too many hops or whatever. And then you had Sierra Nevada and other companies that were just like hops. Suck it.
Yeah, there were other breweries, but I think that the microbrew revolution now, where you can go to any fucking town, small or large, and find like a pizzeria that also brews its own beer, and sometimes the beer is okay, and sometimes the beer is shit.
Yeah.
Right, and then but you can also go to all. I mean, dude, you can walk into any liquor store, especially there's a few specialty liquor stores here. Like there's the official liquor store, Spike's, the official liquor store of the Chico Brewers League. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like a microbrew enthusiast club.
Yeah.
And dude, it's just shelves and cases and shelves and shelves and shelves full of like obscure fucking beers. Like you wouldn't have really seen that when we were kids.
Yeah. Oh no, not at all.
You had
it was
Miller
like...
and you had Coors and you had Budweiser and their various variations. And so the thing is that like their sales weren't declining because they weren't being inclusive.
Yeah.
Their sales were declining because there were other fucking options. And I just think it was really interesting how this like how prohibition and how like sudden change to legal regimes leads to that kind of monopoly status. And how long does it take? So how long is it going to take for cannabis to go, like legal cannabis, to go back to being something that's like, there's 400 or 500 different fucking growers represented at a dispensary, right?
Well, I mean,
so yeah, that's the whole purpose of that tie-in. I don't give a shit about people's boycott of them choosing a trans spokesperson. I think it's fucking retarded. And I think that CEO is short-sighted when she's like, it's a real fratty brand. What ad campaign was real fratty? Like the Wes app? Because I thought the Wes app was funny, and you're right, it was kind of fratty. But guess what was also fucking Budweiser? Clydesdale horses. What about the fucking Budweiser
frogs? The frogs.
What about the Budweiser frogs was fratty?
The frogs was the most innocent time we ever had in any sort of Budweiser advertising campaign. I want to go back to the Budweiser frogs because they were Budweiser. Like they had personality. It was great.
It was so funny that I think I even had a T-shirt with the Budweiser frogs on it, and neither of my parents. My dad drinks beer now, but and so does my mom somewhat. But like at the time, my parents, because we were kids, and my mom has all sorts of like weird things where she has an issue with something, so she imposes it, which is something I find is a fucking pattern for a lot of people.
Neither here nor there. What are we looking at over there, Steve?
Nothing.
What's that?
Just saying, sometimes people think some behaviors are deviant and therefore unacceptable, and try and eliminate them from the world, even though like the reality is what it is.
In the Pacific Northwest, nothing is like that. You do what you want up there.
Is that where we're going?
Probably.
Start a fucking pagan church up in the fucking redwoods, bro.
Mm-hmm. Less focus on the church, more focus on the tax exemptions.
Hey man, speaking of which, what's next week? Beltane, right?
Oh yeah. That is,
or as I've heard, it's actually in Gaelic is Belchna.
I mean, they do pronounce like
weird
words
things
really, really differently. So I'll believe.
At least one book I have says it's pronounced Belchna.
No, yeah.
But most people say Beltane because it's kind of spelled like Beltane.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mayday, Beltane.
Yep. Enjoy it. Enjoy it while you can.
It is a festival of Bacchanalia. Are you familiar?
What is Bacchanalia, Stephen? Please describe it for the rest of us.
It's orgies.
Oh, I had a dream about that recently.
drunken orgies. That's what Bacchanalia is.
Yep.
So, pagan church. One day a year. It's just one cross-quarter day. It's not like you're committing to a lifestyle of debauchery. You're just making an exception for it.
Transmitted infections are there? And can we catch them all? Pokemon.
They're like fucking Pokemon. You gotta catch Pokemon. That's a great place to end, actually.
Join our church, www.thebadchurch.com.
We should come up with a fucking... We'll talk offline. I think it's like $5 to register a domain. Let's fucking do it. Why not? Even if it's a joke.
On it.
All right.
I mean, we already have... Oh, we have an Instagram now with Thunder's Paws Podcast.
Instagram, homie.
No spaces. We're on Instagram. Recommend to us things that we should post, because otherwise I'm probably not going to post anything.
Ooh, that would be a good way to just crowdfund shit we should talk about.
Yep. Okay. Well.
Yeah, I like that.
When crowdfunding ends, it ends with death. Actually, a lot of times.
So Monday we're going to talk about something. We'll figure it out. I think we're leaning towards cops because we have a lot of pieces that we wanted to include in this episode and the last. I think we mentioned the last episode. It was Renegade Cut. I was like, he's like primo radical. They used the same kind of like 8-bit, the kind of 8-bit aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking that, but I knew it wasn't primo radical. It was a Renegade Cut, and he does little mini docs, and he's fucking rad. And check him out. We're going to talk about police. There was a news item that was coming up recently, so maybe we can talk about race, police, violence stuff again. Because there was also like a handful of people recently were killed, like going to the wrong fucking door and then getting like blown away within seconds without any words.
Yeah, a straight up child who got shot in the head. And
by like an old dude who's probably going to be in prison, like going to spend the rest of his life in litigation.
Yeah, and
he'll probably die before the trial's over. He's like fucking ancient, dude.
The one thing that I heard was bad was that it went like door to door looking for help, only got help on the second or third door, And they were like, okay, cool. I'm going to like call for help, but you just like lay there on your belly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like while you're bleeding, you lay there on lay there on your belly because I don't trust you, even though you're like shot in the head.
Oh, after he got shot, he went to
Yeah.
another neighbor and they made him fucking like
Two or
lay
three.
down.
2 or 3. Yeah, yeah. America's a fucked up place, man. We have dynamics that we
Yeah,
don't
let's talk a little bit
we're
about
on the
this
West Coast and we don't
trust too.
understand it. And like the 2 places that we both live for longer than average were like fucking Delaware and Maine and a little bit of New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
We're Yankees, man. We're fucking Yankees through and through. I hate to admit it. Don't unfollow us. Stay with us. We'll make up for it. I'm sure we'll have opinions you'll agree with.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about cops because cops are a big thing, and this cop city thing is still going on. I don't really think we've given it kind of the attention it deserves. There's also all these riots in Chicago recently, but the Chicago mayor is now like kind of
more
coming
train
into the
accidents.
mandate, he says, to like try something different.
Mm-hmm.
So we could totally do a show on policing. And definitely show that Renegade clips from that Renegade cut doc on cops being domestic abusers, and talk about violence in society, and include that Guardian article that I posted there, which I thought was really great because I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but it's mostly about how the media is complicit, which I really enjoyed. So we're going to do that probably, or we'll do that on Monday unless we come up with something better or some crazy shit happens like the U.S. invades Taiwan and we're compelled to like talk about like how to survive nuclear war.
Wouldn't that be fucked up and yet totally expected if that didn't happen over the weekend?
Oh, bro, that's just going to happen real fucking quick.
Taiwan, I don't know who's going to be the aggressor, but Taiwan's going to be involved in some negative shit pretty soon.
Yeah, bro. So if you've been thinking about buying a couple memory sticks or a new GPU, I highly suggest you try to do that ASAP because you probably won't be able to do it again for a decade.
But I mean, most games are online these days, and so you'd have to make sure you downloaded all the single player offline games you could. Just a bit of advice: you're not going to be able to play, Halo 2. That server's down.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. They closed it out, I think, last year sometime. But yeah, a lot of the games that are available can't even be played if you don't connect to the server. So make sure you find a lot of video games with no DCMA.
Or better yet, you can pick up like a little pamphlet that has like 101 different games you can play with a fucking deck of cards. And then you could just play Hearts or fucking whatever. Dude, I played a lot.
I gotta talk to people? What?
I played a lot of fun card games. Me and my friends would get together and get a pitcher of beer and just play cards at the table, drink beer. It was fun.
Someone tried to. What's the one cribbage?
Cribbage is a lot of fun.
I partially learned cribbage like half a dozen times, but I don't know.
Dude, I had friends that in college that were really into fucking cribbage, and they etched on their cribbage board a fucking line, and they called it the green line. And it's the 420 appropriate, man. This brings it full circle. We'll end on this talking about this cribbage board. They called it the green line, and the last person to cross the green line on the cribbage board was the one that had to fucking pack all of the bong hit, at least one bong hit per player. And so they basically, it's like if you're the last player across, like if you're the last place player at this point in the game, you have to smoke everything.
Servitude.
Yeah. It was just kind of a way to like, and then they would
but when you said that, it reminded me of the fight that took place in the second to last episode. In between, Sir Never Misses, Arm Day, and that other guy. I don't know their names, man. But yeah, he's just like, you're cheating at whatever game it is we're playing.
Oh yeah, and Axe Wolves. Paz Vizsla is the big assault gunner.
With
his foundling.
And they have a fun fight.
Axe Wolves is the
and it all wins. It all ends with no.
Yeah, Kroger's like no. No.
Well, I like that part though, because it's like, oh, that's a fun trick you taught your kid. I didn't teach him that.
Yeah, and they kind of did a lot of that where they kind of were like teasing that he did, and that's the thing too. I wish they
picked
would
up a
just,
lot,
like, in like some movies and shows, they'll be like, "Oh, 5 years ago," or 3 months later, or whatever. It
Yeah,
can
yeah.
give you a hint to
Oh,
how much
yeah.
they don't, and it turns out that it's considerable amount of like in-world time passed
Yeah.
with when he was with Luke, but it's like an episode, so to us it doesn't feel like anything.
Right.
Like, so at any rate, he picked up a lot of good habits. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the Mandalore. I think he's going to ride the Mythosaur.
He did at the very end. It like showed him like, and like showed the Mythosaur, and I'm like, I want to see Din Grogu riding on this fucking thing, lightsaber held high. Like, neither of these two republics are, or neither of these two governments are legitimate. I strike them down.
Yeah, bring in a new era, and maybe he can like have a central role in the new Rey movie. Oh yeah,
Could be fun. I mean, he might not be a full-grown baby until well after that.
No, the Rey movie's way later, bro. It's like 40 or 50 years later.
I thought it was like 75. I mean,
75
you know
years
what?
later?
No, you know what? I might be thinking of the comic books.
Yeah, I don't know. Whenever there's supposed to be a Rey sequel movie that comes like 10 years after Rise of Skywalker.
Don't ask for that. Don't want it.
Nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for fucking Dave Filoni's like Endgame style fucking bring all the Mando verse together, right? Nobody asked for that shit. I mean, I trust Dave Filoni, but it's going to be like a fucking comic book movie.
Yeah.
And I don't want comic book movies. I want more Andor.
I
want murder mysteries.
Andor.
Somebody suggested they were said RFR last night, Jason and Jimmy Mack on Rebel Force Radio. When they were doing their after show, they were joking about like, if Gideon's fucking clone survived, and they're like, I don't give a shit. I just want Star Wars content. It's like, I would literally take like a fucking variety, like night show, like Johnny Carson with all fucking Giancarlo Esposito fucking clones where like one's the band leader and one's the announcer and one's the fucking, the host or whatever.
Yeah.
Another one's getting interviewed by the host. It's just a last joke before we go.
Joke.
I heard this one, I forget where, but I thought it was so clever and it was well edited too. If I find it, I'll show you, but it was talking about Moff Gideon's death scene, and oh, never mind, bro. You've never seen fucking Breaking Bad.
Nope.
So the joke
he dies similarly.
Yeah, because Giancarlo Esposito plays like the one of the bigger bad guy in.
I've heard. I've never seen, but I've heard.
Yeah, and his character is fucking excellent. But like when the ship comes crashing down, it was referred to as he's getting Gus Fringed, which was his character in Breaking Bad, by a slow-mo Holdo maneuver. And I thought that was the funniest fucking shit ever because it's just a slow-mo Holder maneuver. It's just like ship going. All right, man. Here we talked about some fucking shit about weed. I'm gonna go get high again because I came down, obviously. If you can't tell. And make another drink. And we're gonna enjoy the rest of our evenings, and you all enjoy the rest of your evenings too. This was With Thunderous Applause, a podcast where two friends get together and
shoot the
Poodoo every Thursday, 9 p.m. ish Pacific Standard Time,
and on Mondays at 2 ish
Pacific Standard Time.
We actually try to talk about things more seriously and more scriptedly. Is scripted a word? It sounds like cryptid, so I'm assuming it's legit. Scriptedly.
Sounds legit to me.
Right.
All right. Remember, stay safe. Fucking shenanigans later.
It
landed bad, right?
And when Thunderous dies, it dies with libertas applause.
Or we should end it with a Palpatine quote, like be like, for a safe and secure society.
Oh my
New
God.
Galactic Empire.
Oh yes, I love the Galactic Empire. It's such a good idea. It's not at all different from anything that's been tried in the last 5,000 years, written in the history books of
Monopolies kill
Star Wars.
communities. Fuck Budweiser. Fuck big weed. When liberty dies, it dies.
with thunderous applause.
Peace. I just did the shocker on accident. I was piecing, but like my pinky was kind of out like that.
Well, it kind of tells you like that's your normal state of mind.
It's not. This is not my normal state of mind.
That's a normal state of mind, and we're ending it right now. Nope. Stream's over. Stream's over. Everyone knows that's your state of mind.
Peace.